really exciting to have you all here. John Sharp and I have been hard at work all summer. John Sharp's my co-chair of the conference to put together a bunch of sessions that we thought you'd find interesting, and hopefully that will be the case with this morning. We have an amazing lineup of speakers who I'll introduce in a moment. I just wanted to kind of clue you into the theme of the session. The idea behind what happens after launch was that we wanted to grab 5 of last year's finalists and give them the opportunity to tell you about what their last year has been like, in all of its glories and ignominy. And just in case that information was useful to this year's finalists or to anyone here, to all of the independent game developers who are here. Without further ado, I will introduce you on my left to Mr. Tyler Glaiel. Tyler's been making games since he was 11, which is round about a decade ago, give or take 1 or 2, which means that he probably has, almost as much game development experience as many of us in this room. And of course, recently, Tyler got a lot of attention for his game Closure, which was the Gameplay Innovation Award winner at last year's IndieCade, and the Excellence in Audio winner at the IGF. And then moving along the line, we have Dan Pinchbeck. Dan runs the Chinese Room, who are responsible for the award-winning Dear Esther and the cult horror game Corsakovia. He's got a doctorate in FPS games, which is a pretty unique accolade, I think. And he writes a lot about them. You're a professor at the University of Portsmouth, assistant professor, gotcha. And he's currently working on a book about Doom and a new game, Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. He has the soul of a poet, but to take it from me, his thumbs are pure gamer. Rob Jagnow is the founder of Lazy 8 Studios in San Francisco. His first indie title, Cogs, was released in April 2009 and is now out on PC, network, and the various iDevices. Cogs was a finalist at IndieCade 2009 and won the grand prize in the professional category at the 2010 Indie Game Challenge, which is a big deal. Congratulations. Andre Clark is an independent game maker. He's based here in Los Angeles. He graduated with a master's degree from the Interactive Media program at USC and went on to start the Peanut Gallery with 3 of the other IMD alums. And at last year's IndieCade, Andre and the guys showed off their game Minor Battle, which went on to win the Audience Choice Award and the Finalist Choice Award. And then finally, my dear friend Steph Thirion. Steph is a graphic designer, a programmer, a musician, and I would like to call him an artist as well, although that might make you blush. His game, Ellis, was a finalist in last year's IndieCade, and he's currently working on his second game, Far Away. So that's our panel for this morning. They're all very accessible guys. John and I was wondering, how is the success of your game from IndieCade last year, or from your series of games, how's it impacted your life? Maybe in terms of whether or not game development is a full-time gig for you, or perhaps in other ways that we haven't thought of. Do you want to start us off, Tyler?
All right. Well, after IndieCade last year, we submitted Closure to the IGF, and we went to that, and we won an award there, and 3 nominations too. And the success of that was enough to encourage me to drop out of school. Right, and we got basically a funding deal, which I still can't talk about. And I moved to San Diego and started a full-time company. I started a company and a full-time job, and now we just started working on Closure full-time, 40 hours a week.
So since you brought it up, I have to ask you about dropping out of school. Well, first of all, tell us where you were at school.
Well, I was going to school at DigiPen Institute of Technology, and I did 2 years of that. I was planning on dropping out around the time that we got nominated for IGF, which was January or so, but I stuck through the semester because I wanted to finish the semester, and we do a lot of, not exactly nice to just leave your team away or something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought that was cool of you to stick around to see things through, and it's a hallmark of anyone making anything. That's an important aspect. So yeah, big year for you.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your story?
So when we had made Dear Esther, we started off through a research grant as a research unit within a university, and earlier this summer we constituted as a company and actually have done that thing of kind of moving across towards a commercial model, partially because we kind of realised that actually the kind of level of investment needed for the types of games we made, because it tends to be experimental with content, particularly in the UK, it tends to get driven by places like the Arts Council and the Arts and Humanities Research Councils. The kind of money that we require is the kind of grants they're not used to giving out. So we're trying to work with them to move across to an investment model where we're trying to use public sector money, but in a private sector way, so we can actually return the grants they make and see their capacity build for these kind of projects.
And that's a pretty new idea.
It's a really, really new idea, so no one's done that before, so we're kind of hoping we can make a real impact on the way in which experimental games are made in the UK, and kind of like within schools and colleges. Partially also because we kind of came to the point of realising that actually our games are worth selling, and they're worth buying, and that was a really big kind of mental step for me, and IndieCade had a lot to do with that, of actually saying this stuff has a financial value, that we deserve to be selling this, and people want to buy our product, which...
Well, we should explain, to contextualise that Dear Esther was a mod.
Oh yeah, Dear Esther existed, and of course co-existed as source mods. So we're making the move now to actually, we're in negotiations with Valve to get a license for the remake of Dear Esther, which will be made by Rob Briscoe, Exit, Dice, and Mirror's Edge. And actually the games we make now will be fully licensed, so we're moving out of model.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Rob.
So the success of Cogs has been fairly gradual. So we launched to small fanfare on Steam, PC a couple years ago. We did really well with a few sales over time. Big boost when we launched on iPhone. Bigger boost when we launched on iPad. But the biggest thing in the last year has been that we won. Cogs won the grand prize of the Indie Game Challenge, which comes with $100,000. So that was more than a big enough buffer for me to sort of push back my contract work and start moving full time on games. Like a lot of indie developers, I have basically stayed afloat with the contract work while I've done the stuff that I love to do. And it's actually really hard to keep your eye on the prize. And, that contract work is often reliable, good money, so it's hard to kind of push that away and work on what you love. I'm basically on my last contract now. It's like 5 hours a week at this point, and getting ready to finish that and do all my own IP, which is a pretty fantastic feeling.
What proportion of your time this last year do you think was spent doing contract work compared to working on Cogs and its various incarnations?
Just 25% of my time this last year has been contract work, which is very reasonable. Cogs has actually taken a lot of code maintenance. Porting it to new platforms takes time. Keeping up with requests and bug reports takes time. But the extra money that we received from the Indie Game Challenge was enough for me to take on a really ambitious, fairly experimental project that is about to go into alpha phase with a few close friends, and I'm willing to talk to people about it individually, but I'm not quite ready to put out a public announcement of what that's going to be. I'll probably offer some teasers later.
Okay. We'll try and draw you on that subject just a little bit. So Andre, tell us about your last year in terms of the impact of Mine and Battle in being an IndieCade.
Yeah, so after graduating from USC, me and the other guys from Peanut Gallery, we wanted to start a company, but we didn't really know where to start. So after Mine and Battle kind of picked up some momentum and some attention at IndieCade, we were really motivated to just go out there and see what we could do, start the company. We got all the legal paperwork and all that stuff. And we were running on this adrenaline. And we looked around and were like, all right, so what do we do with this game? We had no idea because, we went left and right trying to find different avenues and try to talk to different people and got no return.
And I want to explain a little bit about Mine and Battle. It was a super interesting game from last year's festival. Well, do you want to describe it, actually?
Yeah, so Mine and Battle is more of an arcade installation. It uses 4 PC monitors. And
Arranged in like a ring.
Yeah, it's arranged in a cube with the monitors facing outwards. And there's 4 players, each control a little avatar in a 2D platform. And you're running from monitor to monitor to complete these team-based games. And
so you get a lot of kind of like player interaction, sort of people jostling each other and kind of chasing their avatars in a circle around the human screen.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of appeal there. We just didn't know where to take it. So we kind of sat on that for a while and worked on some side projects to really get something concrete for the company going. And eventually got in contact with the code game guys, and they wanted to have Minor Battle on their new deal with Sony PlayStation Home. So that's where we started working out with them, and then some other stuff happened. It's on hold right now, but it's that stuff.
And can you, because Peanut Gallery's been involved in a bunch of other projects throughout the year. I think one of the cool things about the studio is that you describe yourself as a collective, so you kind of operate as a group and also semi-independently. Can you mention a little bit about some of the other things you've done this last year?
Yeah, I mean, like last year, Jamie had Spectre out. That's his project, and he's had a similar momentum taking that to festivals and things like that. He was at IGF for the student showcase. RJ had a thesis project. John had a thesis project, and they're all appealing in their own way. We had a lot of like interesting ideas, and that we all kind of bring together when we work on new projects. But we're all still doing different things outside of Indie Gallery. We come together and work on whatever the games are.
Which I thought was a very cool. I mean, I think that your story is interesting from this last year because of sort of. I think it's tricky when you're starting up any new venture of getting all the gears meshing kind of at the same time.
Right.
The fact that you guys were kind of you incorporated well as a company, but then kind of had this looking for the place to deploy Minor Battle, and I think it's great that you kind of kept all these other things going as well to keep the pencil moving.
Right.
So that's cool. Yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson.
Yeah, then I think before the Minor Battle stuff started, we came together. We did Pond, put that out.
Right.
That got a lot of attention.
Yes, maybe we'll talk about that later. Steph, how has your year since IndieCade been in terms of? I mean, it's been a big shift for you.
Just been living the dream. And the dream is just to be able to work full time on ideas.
Which began when?
So I was also doing contract work before I started making Ellis, but I just dropped contract work right away when Steve Jobs announced the App Store. I called all my clients and I said, which was a little, maybe I didn't think too much about it, but it ended up being a good decision. But then I was on a deadline to do Ellis because the budget was limited, and so after Ellis launched and I actually started getting an income from my games, then I was like really, just being supported independently by other projects. And so the last year has been kind of like figuring out how to, I'm still working on my projects, but I don't have that looming deadline on myself, so I'm like learning how to manage myself into basically like I guess my next game will come up when I run out of money, which will be like the next couple of months. So that's good news.
We'll have a work for you on PayPal. Big kind of stuff. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, your background was sort of, in your creative life was making interactive media art, and your professional life was kind of working with these advertising clients. Was it scary to make that jump, or was it just going along?
No, not at all. Because it was so great, stopping, making websites for cars and tampons. I don't have anything against tampons. It's not very interesting to make websites for them.
So
I hate cars, so I was unhappy.
And so just the sheer pleasure of following your own kind of star full time dissipated any anxieties that you had?
Yeah, it was just too exciting to be scared about it. That's why I was like,